Carmine Appice here, and you're watching CMS TV.
Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin, and today on the show we get a legend, and that's always good. It's always great to have a legend with us. The man is Carmine Appice. The band is Cactus. They have a brand new release called Temple of Blues, Influences and Friends, and here to talk all about it is the man himself, the great Carmine Appice. Carmine, how are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's great to talk to you. It's great to talk to you about... Still got it, man.
Yeah, I still try anyway.
Right on, man. Well, dude, this Temple of Blues is an exciting release. It's fun. It's kind of exploring the history of you and your work. Talk about it, man. Talk about how it came together and how you decided to put this lineup together.
Well, it started with Brian Pereira, who owns Cleopatra Records. And he loves Cactus, and we did a couple of releases with Cactus on his label. And he said, we should do an album that has influences that Cactus had on different musicians. I said, wow, that's a cool idea. So
right.
I said, plus we can get friends, on the band. Maybe we'll call it Influences and Friends. So he said, yeah, let's do that. You think you can do it? Yeah, I can do that, So I produced it, and I have my studio here, as you see in the background. And I started it with the drums, which is unusual. The drums were the first instrument on the record. So I started doing it, and he gave me a budget to do it. So I called some of my friends who I knew were Cactus fans, like Ted Nugent, the guy from King's X. Couple other ones that I knew were Cactus fans. But then I did Joe Bonamassa's podcast, and I said, he said to me, when you came out with Cactus and Parchment Farm, it blew my brains out. I said, God, funny you should say that, because I'm doing a new version of Parchment Farm. I got Billy Sheehan on bass, because Billy told me when Tim Bogert died, he said, anything you want to do that's going to have Tim's name in it, I'll do. I said, okay. So I knew I had Billy Sheehan too. So I said, well, let's do Parchment Farm. So I said, what's funny, we're doing Parchment Farm, and love for you to play on it. He says, okay, let's do it. So I had a commitment on his own podcast.
Okay.
So like he couldn't fall away and go. I said, well, I can't do it now. But anyway, he did come through, and Billy Sheehan came through. And then we asked Jim McCarty, who was our original guitar player, that he should play on a couple of tracks on this album. So he did play on Parchment Farm, Evil, which were two of the most famous tracks on Cactus' career. And so I just started doing the first track I did was Parchment Farm. And the way I did it was I would start playing drums with the song in my head and then play the whole song that way. And then I did One Way or Another like that. So, man, there's got to be an easier way to do this. I put down a click track, and I sang the song.
Okay.
And Evil, I would go, bom, bom, do-we-dee-dun, do-dun, 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 dun, 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 it's one way, whatever the lyric was, And then it's Evil, and I played the whole track that way with my voice. And then I actually played to it. And that made it easy. And once I did that, I gave it to our singer who's on the album, who's a new singer with Cactus, Jim Stapley. I gave him the track I did. He put guitar, a vocal, and a harmonica if it needed it. And then we gave it to our bass player, James Caputo. He put the bass on it. Now I had a demo of the song. So now I can call people and say, Ted Nugent, you want to play One Way or Another? He goes, oh, man, I love that song. He played One Way or Another. And then I asked Doug Pinnick if he would play it and sing it. And he said, definitely, and Ted's on it. So then we put that together. So that's how every song went, little by little, little by little. Thinking, well, who I think could play Swim? Well, we had the intro of Swim, which I know is a fact because Eddie and Alex told me that the beginning of Swim was exactly what they called Eruption.
Okay.
In their first album, where they hit the chord, and Eddie did a big thing, and then they went blum, blum, down, and they hit another chord, and blop. Now they called that a track called Eruption. We just had it as an intro to the song called Swim. So I said, we extended the intro, so it's a little bit like ours, a little bit like Eruption. I need somebody who's killer to play that. So I got Doug Aldrich. I knew he was amazing. So
sure,
he did an amazing part. Have you heard the whole record?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. Doug did an amazing, solo in that Eruption part of thing, and it went into our song Swim. And then I got Malcolm Mendoza, who I didn't know was a Cactus fan. He was a friend, and I asked him to play, and he said, oh, man, I love Cactus. He even did a little thing at the beginning that Tim Bogert did, and went into the song. So that's how every song happened.
Okay. Are you surprised at this point a lot of these younger musicians are so aware of Cactus? It really seems like Cactus is one of those influential bands for a lot of musicians. I know for me, I interview a ton of musicians, and a lot of them reference Cactus as one of their early influences.
Well, that's interesting because I didn't know everybody. Like Steve Stevens was a friend of mine. So I asked him if he'd do this. He goes, oh, man, I'm from Brooklyn, man. Cactus was what? I said, wow. I'm thinking to myself, I didn't know that, And a bunch of these guys, that I didn't know, like Steve Stevens and Warren Haynes was another one. He's doing the blues, did an amazing job in the blues. I didn't know he was a Cactus fan, or influenced by Cactus.
Right on. I know you knew Dee Snider was, though. He was of everything, he's probably the most obvious choice just because he's covered Evil before with Widowmaker. When you heard, this is kind of a two-part question, when you heard Widowmaker do it, what did you think? And what do you think now hearing Dee's current version that he did with you in comparison to that?
Widowmaker's version, the drummer was a student of mine, Joe Franco.
Right.
I know Joe since he's like 17 years old. He told me they did it. He sent me the copy. And I said, you didn't play the drum part right. He said, playing the wrong drum part. So he said, I did. And I kind of mouthed the way the drum should have gone. He said, oh, man, I didn't realize that. But so I knew that Dee loves Cactus. He's from Long Island.
Sure.
Cactus was big on Long Island. And just like a story that Paul Stanley told me years ago in 1978, unless I'm getting the story wrong, he said he went to see Cactus and Alice Cooper and said, if we can get the rawness and energy of Cactus and the makeup and all that with Alice Cooper, we'd have something. Right? History. I don't know if they say that now, but LaFoe was always a good guy and a friend of mine. He did tell me that way back. So Dee, I knew was a Cactus fan, so I called him, and he did a great job in the vocals back then. So I called him, and I know he had kind of a voice like Rusty Day, our original singer.
Right.
So I said, look, we got the track Evil. I'd love for you to sing on it. He said, no problem. I'm in. It wasn't even like anything. He says, I'm in. And we didn't even have to pay him anything. What a wonderful guy, He was so into it. He said, you don't have to pay me nothing. I'm honored to do this. And, he was in a big band, I was honored that he was on.
Right.
And we gave him the track with Doug Pinnick played bass, because I knew King's X was fans, because when we toured with Blue Murder, we was Blue Murder, Billy Squire, and King's X opened up. And I went on their bus, and they were playing Cactus. And I said, wow. He said, oh, man, we're big Cactus fans. So I knew from that day, I put them on my Guitar Zeus record. I put them on, different things, And so Doug said, yeah, I'll do it, man. I'll do it. So I got Doug playing Evil and Doug playing bass on Evil, playing bass on One Way or Another, and singing One Way or Another, which he did a great job on both, on all those songs. So when I gave it to D, I told McCarty, the original guitar player, that D was going to do it. He knows nothing but D. Snyder from Twisted Sister.
Sure.
He goes, oh man, come on. He can't sing that song. I said, he'll do a great job, believe me. When he heard it, he was blown away. He says, it sounds like Rusty. I said, yeah, it does. And he sounded similar to our original singer, and he did a tremendous job. And the video, have you seen the video?
I have seen the video.
He did a great job on the video, too. And Doug did a great job in the video. I wasn't happy with my filming on mine. I wasn't happy with the angles we did. But everybody likes it, so I said, okay, I'll lay back on that. We're going to shoot one way or another. I already shot my part of Parchment Farm. We're going to shoot one way or another on the 28th. In my house. I also have a green screen that goes around all the school records and stuff, so you don't see that. And we shoot right in our studio, which makes it easier, So I'm going to shoot it on the 28th, and I'm going to change the angles. Yeah, we had a song with Cactus called Tightrope, and the video with that, I was showing the video of that to my kid that does the angles. I said, I want those angles. So I had a different guy shoot. So we're going to shoot it with those angles because those angles were really good.
Very good.
A lot of work.
Doing it this long, Carmine, what keeps you coming back knowing that it's this kind of work?
My friends say, you live in Florida, you play golf? I said, no, what's your hobby? I said, I play drums.
Right.
So that's really the story.
Right on.
And, yesterday I was watching the ending of Bon Jovi documentary.
Yeah, Thank You, Good Night.
Yeah. I felt bad for him because he lost his voice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my voice is messed up, as you could hear it, but I could still sing. And sing like when I do Vanilla Fudge, I could sing my parts, I could sing People Get Ready. But man, that's sad for a guy who's the lead singer and so big that, what's he going to do now? Sad.
Yeah. When you see something like that, Carmine, do you look at somebody like Rick Allen and with just absolute amazement when you see how much he lost and how he's been able to continue on?
I thought he would be out of the band when it happened.
Right.
When he came back doing that, first of all, I gave him big credit. I gave the band even bigger credit.
Sure.
For letting him do that. But luckily, all their songs anyway were very simple.
True.
So for him to do what he did, it was easy. If he played songs like I played,
right,
couldn't have done it. But the easy grooves he had, he did it. But you know what? Unbelievable. Fantastic. And he still do.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Carmine, looking backwards a little bit, I mean, you've been there pretty much since the beginning of hard rock. I mean, you've really seen the entire history of it. What do you feel personally you still need to do or you want to do that you haven't accomplished yet?
Well, I always wanted to have a hit drum single like Gene.
Okay.
But it won't happen anymore because, a hit today is the bass on the keyboard, a keyboard and a drum machine.
Right.
That's why Sam Ash is going out of business. Guitar Center has reduced their stores because nobody goes in and says, hey, I want to buy a guitar because I heard it on the radio. Or I want to buy a drum set like John Bonham or Carmine Appice or Ian Pace or whoever. That just doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
So I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Going out playing with different things. I have a show that I do with this guy, Rob Cordell. It's a rod show. This guy's been doing rods for 20 years. And I went up to see him and he asked me to jam with him. When I did, the audience went crazy. I played the songs that I played with Rod.
Okay.
I wrote with Rod. And, I never get to play those songs anymore. I was very involved in Passions, You're in My Heart and Hot Legs and Breathing I'm Sexy and others, You're in My Heart. I played Tonight's the Night so many times, and Maggie May, I played so many times. Yeah, it ain't heavy metal or anything, but it's still rock, you know?
Right.
And when I came up on the stage, the people weren't crazy. And the guy said, I'd love us to be partners in this. I said, great, let's do it. Because when I went to see Rod, I said, he did 12 songs. 8 of the songs that he did, I was involved in.
Right.
Either I wrote or I played on, or I did the background vocals and played on it, or did whatever. And I never get to play him anymore. So when he said, let's be partners, I said, let's go. So right now I'm really playing everything. I'm playing Vanilla Fudge. I'm playing Cactus. I'm playing with my Rod stuff. I just released a Beck Bogan Appice box set where the band is on fire. Nobody plays like that anymore.
Right.
And, now this Cactus thing, it really is full circle on everything, which I'm enjoying. My age, I listen to some of these musicians. It's unbelievable. Some of these metal bands, what they really call metal, where they got that, vocal, which I don't understand the lyrics.
Right.
I have a kid up the street that I'm giving lessons to, and his father is a good friend of mine, and they put together a song, and they're playing it, and, pretty cool. And the guy sings like that. So I said to the drummer, I go, what's he singing about? He goes, I don't know. It's very hard to understand, but, I like the bands more that, like Dream Theater.
Okay.
Where it's progressive, it's got time changes and got all this really cool stuff, and they sing.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. There's a couple other bands. I mean, I bought a record by this girl, I can't remember her name. She's a country chick, and she put a combination of country and metal together.
Okay.
And it was really good, So I bought it. Because I don't listen to Spotify because of the way they rip musicians.
Right. I don't blame you there. Well, Carmine, I want to talk a little bit about drumming for a second here. I'm going to make a statement. You could tell me I'm crazy or I'm right on or whatever, somewhere in the middle. I think that the modern drummer today is kind of like the Yngwie Malmsteen of the 80s, where they're mixing in 1,000,000 notes per measure and they're judged on how many notes they can play instead of like in your era and in the 80s and whatnot, where the true talent came from the feel or the swing. Yeah. I don't feel like any of these current guys have a signature sound other than speed. And I think that's why rock itself is going away, because there's no swagger to it anymore. What do you think?
Well, I agree 100%. I think it all started with Lars and Metallica. But Lars had some dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
All the drummers today, as fast as they are, they're doing things I look at, I go, oh my God, there's that guy on the internet.
Esposito.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. But guess what? When he had his band, he didn't play any of that. Right? His band, he's playing boom, 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 boom. And the one section of the first song was a cool little section. Then he went back to a normal groove. I said, see, there it is. With all that technique and everything, you want to do a song that people can relate to, you got to do a groove. It's all about the groove. And the problem today is they all sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
They're all recording the same. They're triggering, and the bass drums they don't sound like bass drums. They sound like this. That's your bass drum sound, Mm-hmm. I got 2 Ludwig bass drums from 1971, 24 by 15. They're bigger this way. They sound unbelievable, and you heard the sound of them. I record all those drums over here, and they sound great.
Yeah.
My drums have the dynamics and the balls, I don't get it, but I think it's all a matter of the reason why rock went away is because the pop singers started getting more non-rock.
Right.
They started getting into more keyboard, more drum machine. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And the rock, there's rock out there. Some of these bands I never even heard of are selling out 10,000 seats. I don't know how they do it. But I did notice bands that are making it now, they're not young.
True.
They're over 30, usually, because it takes them that long to build an audience by going out and touring and making no money, sleeping in vans and making no money. And the next time they have a little bigger audience, next time bigger. And, and then maybe somebody signs them. But, people don't sign anybody anymore unless you got 250,000 views.
Right.
On YouTube,
Which is a terrible way to judge a band by itself, because it doesn't evaluate the staying power. That's just, I like on a lot of things on YouTube. If I hear once, it's okay. And, I'll like it. That doesn't mean that I'm a fan of their band.
Yeah. But it's just a weird place for young musicians, especially. My friend's son just graduated high school. I said, what are you going to do? He goes, well, I want to try and be in a band and make it. I said, dude, that is so hard today. You won't make big money until you in your 30s, maybe, and you may not make it. You may look all that time, He said, well, I'm going to my mom wants me to go to college. Okay, so I'm going to go to music college. I said, okay, and what are you going to do then? And then what? I was lucky with Vanilla Fudge. I made it when I was 19 years old. I was on the Ed Sullivan Show in front of 50 million people when I was 20.
Wow.
And when I was 21, I was on it again. And we toured the world. We had all, European videos, which there's a company wants to put out all of the videos we did in Europe in those days on the TV videos. But today, there is none of that. Unless you're a legendary guy like Rod Stewart can get on the late night TV shows and have millions of people watch. But you're a new band, to put you on that show. Very rare to have anything rock on those shows.
Yeah, true.
It's just totally different. We did all those shows, the Merv Griffin show, this show, that show. All those shows that had millions of viewers.
Sure.
But today, it's all about the internet. I don't personally know how they work the internet to become big.
Right.
Do you?
If I did,
I'm one of them. You're on the internet.
I'm on the internet. I know how they do it, but I don't know how they get super huge. But I guess
I don't know either.
Some of it's luck of the draw.
What's that?
Some of it is luck of the draw.
But a good example is that drummer we talked. I didn't remember.
Esposito.
He's amazing. I got to admit, the stuff he does is unbelievable. He's like the Buddy Rich of the new generation. But when you play with a band, I think, my own personal opinion, I think people that wanted to see him play with the band, they wanted to see him do what he does.
Right.
With the band. That first single was a acoustic guitar beginning. Then when he came in, he was just playing the groove, and the middle part was really cool. And then he went back to the groove and the acoustic guitar. Surprised me,
Right.
Because I watched some of his videos. I watched enough of him that I know what he does. He even holds the stick sometimes like I invented, like this.
Right.
I seen him doing that and do the twirl, hit the cymbal. That's something I started in 1968. And I got a story with Tommy Lee with that, if you want to hear it.
Sure.
It's in my book called Stick It, my book is Stick It, My Life of Sex, Drums, and Rock and Roll. So I always did this. I do the spin, right, like that. And I hit it, I grab the cymbal, got like that, and Vanilla Fudge. You watch it on the Ed Sullivan Show. So I've been doing that since 1967. So when we toured with Ozzy, Motley Crue opened up. So we used to, Led Zeppelin used to open up for Vanilla Fudge.
Right.
So I got John Bonham, a kid just like Bonham. We were really good friends. So we'd goof off, like he would look at me and go, hey, watch this. He'd do the spin, hit the cymbal and grab it, hit the cymbal. And I go, yeah, man, cool, And then he must have been doing it later on when he was bigger, which he probably did. So when we did the tour with Motley Crue, I saw Tommy do it. I said, that's cool. I said, where'd you get that? He said, I got it from John Bonham. I said, now, indirectly, you got it from me. He said, no, dude. No, dude. I got it from Bonzo. I said, okay. When the tour is over, he wasn't a big star yet.
Okay.
Yeah, lived in an apartment with this other woman. And I said, when we go home, come over to my house. And I had a big house, walls and gates, and I said, come to my house. I want to show you some videos. He says, okay. So he came to my house, and I showed him the video of Ed Sullivan in 1968 with me doing all that stuff, and I was an animal on that video. He said, dude, when was this? I said, 1968, a year before Led Zeppelin even came out. Wow. And then I showed him the year later when I had the big drums that looked like Bonzo's drums. He said, when was this? I said, 69. He said, now, they just came out in December 26, 68. They've only been out 3 months, right? I got him that drum set, which he didn't get till 69 summer tour. And at the end of Shotgun, I did a thing that was very similar to rock and roll. He said, dude, that's rock and roll. I said, yeah. When was this? I said, 1969. Now, obviously, they didn't do rock and roll till 74.
Right.
So, he didn't, and he was like, wow, he was a believer then. But, I knew from John that he was a fan of mine, because I was out first, but I loved the way he played. I loved his thing in good times, bad time. I said, that was great. He said, I got it from you. I said, I don't do that. He showed me one place I did it on a Vanilla Fudge album. I said, wow. So now it's history, a great drummer, Joe Morello, jazz drummer, said, nobody has it all. We all take from each other.
Right.
That's the way it is.
No.
John took it from me. Tommy Lee took it from John. I'm sure some younger kids took it from Tommy. It just goes down the line. But it's the way it is.
Right.
But that's why I say I think Laws started all that fast bass drum stuff, Metallica, and then guys took it from him, and then it went down the line to where it is now, where it's all, you know what, when you play an arena or a big place, you can't even hear it.
True.
It becomes like a blur,
Right. Definitely.
It's all about the groove.
I agree. There's a reason like AC/DC has been able to survive forever, and it's that groove.
Led Zeppelin, about the grooves. It's all about the grooves, every band.
Mm-hmm.
Any band that's big, you name a band, they got groove. Van Halen, grooves.
No, you're absolutely right.
Even Ozzy, they had a great rhythm section. Bob Daisley and Lee Kurz had great rhythm section. That groove. When you have the groove and you put everything on top of it, it's great. Legendary. It goes down the line. Stays forever.
Right.
Today, it's hard because the old bands release albums. You don't even hear about it.
Right.
Stones released an album. You don't hear anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a different world.
It's crazy. But, you do what you can. I did this album. I loved working with everybody. And then when we got that album cover, I said to the art director, I go, I want like a Sgt. Pepper kind of cover.
Right.
And he said, okay. So he sent me pictures of everybody. I'm sure heads are putting on bodies and stuff. Steve Stevens didn't like the body to put him on, so he sent the picture. But I didn't realize that, until he said that. But then we had the whole thing. But then he said, the first thing he said, we all look like Sgt. Pepper with the outfits.
Right.
There's those Sgt. Pepper, outfits, And I said, no, dude, I don't want the outfits. I just want all the people on there.
Right.
So at that time, it was called Influences and Friends. And then, I'm friends with Foghat. I'm friends with those guys, and I'm friends with Robin Trower. And I noticed they were getting #1 on the blues charts on Billboard.
Okay.
But nothing on the regular charts. So I said to the owner of the company, I said, why don't we market this as a blues album? Because it is blues.
Sure.
Blues is considered 1-4-5 changes, Evil got it. All our songs have it. All the songs. Parchment Farm have it. Evil has it. Alaska, Rock and Roll Children, Oleo, they all have the blues change. So I said, why don't we market it as a blues album? So the label owner says, let's call it Temple of Blues.
Okay.
I said, great. What a good idea. Let's change the artwork to temple-looking stuff. And he said, great. So there you have the artwork. There's a temple in the background with the cactus, 4 members of Cactus on where it says Cactus, and then everybody under it. I said, man, that's a cool album cover.
Yeah, it's great.
So we went with that. So now all the artwork, as you know, when you open it up, it's all temple based. And you notice there's some, like my wife said, how come Bonamassa ain't on this saying that they're talking about? I said, well, these guys gave us quotes.
Right.
Whoever's on there, they gave us quotes. Now, not everybody's on there because everybody didn't give us quotes, So we got quotes from a lot of the key guys, and and a lot of them say how they were influenced by Cactus.
Sure.
Which, I read the quotes and said, wow, I didn't know that. What? And really, really cool. It's really, so the album was a great experience for me to make from the beginning to the end. The mixing, we did sometimes 8, 9 mixes and to fix this and fix that. That's why it took a year. And my mixer, Pat Regan, co-produced the album with me. He's like the best.
Right.
He's the best. That album kicks butt.
Right on. Well, Carmine, I know Cactus is still active, but will you get any chance to get out there in some sort of an all-star lineup with some of the members that recorded this with you?
Well, we haven't really thought of it that way. We just thought of it more like Cactus. Like the first few gigs we're doing have a different singer and a different bass player, Tony Franklin, right?
From Blue Murder days, yeah.
And the new guitar players with us. Because the last guy we had, Paul Warren, is a tremendous player. And then he got sick and he couldn't play anymore. McCarty still around and playing, but he doesn't want to be on the road.
Right.
And he can't get up 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning to drive somewhere, or drive at night. He'd be better off driving at night because he likes to sleep till 3 in the afternoon. But he just does gigs around Detroit.
Okay.
I know we're playing, in August, we're playing in the Detroit area. Ted's going to come play with us. Probably McCarty will come play too. But, if the album does well, maybe we'll think about doing some key cities and make it like an all-star thing. The Cactus Carmine all-star band like Ringo does.
Right.
I would love that. I would love that because all these players are so good.
No, I agree.
They're awesome.
One quick one outside of this, just for a minute. Are we ever going to see John Sykes professionally again? I mean, what a talent to not be doing anything.
I agree with you. The last thing I heard from somebody, it might have been Tony, I can't remember who it was from, was that he don't like the business today, and he don't like the way it's run. He doesn't like anything about it. Not releasing records, not making any money. And he just says, screw it. I'll just stay home.
I guess it must be nice if you can.
Well, he wrote the majority of those songs on the album that sold 27 million copies.
True.
When you write on albums like that and you got just 2 people on it, you get 4 cents an album, and then they're still all over radio.
Mm-hmm.
And TV commercials and stuff like that. You get ASCAP must be huge. I mean, I just have Young Turks and You Think I'm Sexy are my big ones in my career. And I still see Cactus and some Blue Murder there, but the big ones in ASCAP are those 2. And I make some big money off of that. And so I can imagine what he's making, probably 4 or 5 times what I made. Make 4 or 5 times that, you could live off that.
Right.
But at least, like you said, it must be nice. I mean, I don't have to go out and play. But as I said before, I play drums.
Right.
I have to play drums. My idol, Buddy Rich, played until he couldn't play anymore, And I hope I'm that lucky. Right now, I'm 10 years older than him, and I'm still playing. I notice things in my playing slowing down because, I'm older, but I know how to make up for it doing something else,
Carmine, I think we're going to hear tapping on your coffin when you pass away.
Yeah, I ain't gonna have a cough. I'm gonna be in the drum.
There you go. And it'll still have rain.
Yeah, my wife still has the drum here in the studio.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been lucky. I've been blessed with a great career. I know it. I've become more of a Christian guy. I wrote some Christian songs. I was asked to play at a Christian church in a few weeks.
Wow.
I said, "Oh, what kind of drum you got?" They got electronic drums. I said, "Oh, I don't know about that. A lot of drums are useless, but, I enjoy playing anything,
Right.
I'll play anywhere. I'm like Trump, anywhere, anytime.
Right. Very good.
I enjoyed that saying.
Sure. No doubt.
Any date, anytime.
Right on.
Hey.
Well, the new album is called Cactus, Temple of Blues, Influences and Friends, and Carmine, man. It's been a pleasure as always, man, here on Chris Akin Presents.
Great. Been great.
Seth and Chris don't say it enough, but the best place for everything associated with The Seth Williams Show is their website, www.thesethwilliamsshow.com. You can watch all live episodes of the show live right there on the site. You can get past shows in both audio and video on demand formats. You can join our exclusive VIP programs on Minds and Super Chat right from the page. You can also purchase all the Best Seth Show merchandise on the page as well. Bookmark it today, www.thesethwilliamsshow.com.